Today's video is brought to you by the novel 9/10. 9/10 is more than just a thriller. It's a sobering and all too real look at the end of the road we've already begun to travel. And I applaud the author for a job well done in presenting it. Easily one of the top 5 independent novels I've read, and highly recommended. I've read a lot of books about dystopian societies, and they can really be hit or miss. This one was a hit. Buy the novel today and click the link below.
Everybody, I'm Christopher Green. This is Green Wave Radio Live. I have a jam-packed, supercharged show today. Be taking your calls during the first hour. In fact, we're putting out those live tweets as I speak to alert the viewing public. Again, our access number, our direct line, love to hear from you today, 218-339-8525, 218-339-8525. In the second hour of today's show, I have the pleasure of having David Laurie Vanderbeek, the constitutionalist choice for governor of Nevada in 2014. Looking forward to interviewing him. We'll be digging into what's happening here in the United States of America as red-blooded, freedom, liberty-loving Americans are being backed into a wall by a bully. That bully is the federal government. That bully is the DHS, the Department of Homeland Terrorism. Not security. This is the Department of Homeland Terrorism. The only terrorists that we need to be concerned about as Americans aren't the ones that they pitch and propagandize to us overseas, the fictional Osama bin Laden type cartoon characters, which really are the equivalent of a government Easter bunny or Santa Claus. I'm talking about the real threat to our security here in the United States of America, which is this authoritative system, this authoritative government, and these criminals that pose a clear and present danger to people not just here in America, but all over the world. A couple of breaking stories. In fact, I have a video in post-production as we speak. We'll get it up as soon as possible, promoting today's program and show detailing the DHS and their plans to buy an additional 360,000 more rounds of hollow point ammunition. Let me repeat that. An additional 360,000 more rounds of hollow point ammunition to be used in the streets of America. Not overseas, not in Iraq, not in Afghanistan, not in Iran, not in Syria. You know, I've been meaning to speak to this. A lot of you were probably aware and noticed the little coinky-dinky, that happened over the past week where President Barack Obama, finally someone kicked him in the ass and said, hey, you might want to go talk to Israel. He's too busy on his vacations. In fact, he's on another one now. I don't even know how this guy runs the country. But there's the rub. He doesn't. President Barack Obama is just a teleprompter reader, and he's just a pretty face, and he's somebody that has done, let's face facts, America, done a damn good job of dividing the country racially, dividing the country socially, dividing it from a constitutional perspective. I mean, hey, he's even convinced Jim Carrey, a friggin' idiot, although I do think he's a, fairly comical actor. These people need to get their hands, they need to get their asses out of what they don't get, out of what they don't understand, politics. Jim Carrey puts out this dumb, honestly, an embarrassment of a video mocking that anybody that, believes in the Second Amendment or wants to protect our Constitution. Again, it's how the country was founded. The nation was built on guns. He equates them to being, people that endorse killing children, which is absolutely insane, is absolutely ridiculous. Of course, President Barack Obama is using children as his human shield to accomplish a political agenda, which I feel to be absolutely disgusting. It shows you what kind of person President Barack Obama is. It gives you a peek into his character. You know how they also say you are who your friends are? You know, you are who you hang out with. His best buddy, butt boy, John Corzine, the rapist that stole billions of dollars from his own client accounts and then played an instrumental role in funding President Barack Obama's campaign of tyranny over the past 2 terms. You know, that guy, you know, they say things like the apple don't fall far from the tree, or, you know, you are who your friends are. These are the type of people Obama hangs out with. Criminals. Bernie Madoff types 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, 1,000,000,000 times, a gazillion times worse than the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme that was run. So, you know, these are the type of people that these guys are. Now, remember, we've reported heavily on this extensively. We've been one of the few alternative websites breaking this news to you live over the past few months. Over the 3 or 4 years, I've been passionately doing this myself, along with our crew, our team, people like Topher Morrison delivering our AM/TV news segment, and many others. Many others I want to thank sincerely for delivering our message, not only online in the blogosphere, posting our content on highly trafficked websites or their Facebook pages. And these are things people always ask me, Christopher, what can I do? What can I do? I want to get involved. You know what? We need people to do some legwork for us. We need people to do legwork, not just through social media, although that is key and integral to getting our message out virally in a guerrilla format to the American people, which is desperately needed. But we need that same type of aggressiveness in the real world. I'm in the process of putting many of our documentaries that we put out, including the executive, in a DVD format. I'm going to soon to make that available to all of our audience and our fans so that we can get physical copies into the hands of friends and family. I mean, literally, I'm just going to throw these in the back of my truck. I'm going to have hundreds of copies. I'm going to just give them out to everybody I know. Get the word out. So very excited about the future, very excited about the campaign for liberty in general. Back to the DHS buying over 360,000 more rounds of hollow point ammunition. Now, remember, you know, people always say, oh, Christopher, you know, this is only coming from, you know, news outlets like InfoWars and, you know, these lunatic websites. We can't, you know, show that to our friends because they're not going to believe that, you know, it's reality. They're just going to think it's, you know, some kind of liberty propaganda or something like that. Well, I've got a question for you. Is Forbes mainstream enough for you? Because one of the major mainstream, and I don't give the mainstream any credit at all, mainstream news outlets, which really are just propaganda outlets, Forbes reported on the $1.6 billion round ammo purchase. They reported on that March 11th, earlier this month, 2013. So, I mean, it doesn't get any more mainstream than that. And the American people need to wake up to the fact that, yes, you are being robbed. Yes, you are being stolen from, just like the people of Cyprus. That is obvious. Yes, you are being disarmed. And yes, the United States of America is arming up for a very violent domestic confrontation. You know, this is no longer about wars overseas and fighting the terrorists with towels around their head, or at least that's how they pitch it to us, although these people are people. These people overseas that live in Iraq and Afghanistan are just like you and I that live in Syria or that live in Iran. Yes, there's cultural differences, but, you know, the mainstream media and our president and our government at large and the propaganda machine has a really fantastic way of propagandizing and demonizing these people, so it makes it easier to murder them. I mean, it's a lot harder to murder over a million plus innocent civilians in places like Iraq when you realize these people are just like you, your friends, and your family. I mean, that doesn't really go over well when President Barack Obama comes on camera and is like, hey, we just slaughtered 1 million plus innocent civilians, women, and children overseas today. How do you feel about that? So what they do is, you know, they broadcast it to you like these people are literal demons, demonic with the horns coming out of their heads. It would literally go for your carotid artery, suck out all the lifeblood from your soul, then rape your dead body, play with it, light it on fire, make your kids watch before slitting their throats. I mean, that's the type of violent propaganda that we're pitched very subtly. You know, it's just kind of put down in that part of the brain called the amygdala. As some of you probably heard of that if you studied psychology or you've studied biology. That's kind of the brain center of emotion. And so they very subtly place that in the back of your brain so that you're okay with the murdering of innocent men, women, and children. But not only has this been happening overseas over the past few decades, and President Barack Obama has only been a continuation of the tyranny of George W. Bush, but this is now being brought into our streets, your town, your churches, your cities, and while at the same time they're disarming you, they're arming up in record numbers. So get these stories out. 1.6 billion rounds of ammo for Homeland Security, courtesy of Forbes. Another breaking report from InfoWars today, a legitimate media source to complement the Forbes article. DHS to buy 360,000 more rounds of hollow point ammunition. This broke today while the Department of Homeland Security continues to ignore members of Congress demanding to know why the federal agency is engaged in an apparent arms buildup. The DHS has just announced it plans to purchase another 360,000 rounds of hollow point ammunition to add to the roughly 2 billion bullets already bought over the past year. A solicitation on the Federal Business Opportunities website. So this is where you can do the verification phase. I know a lot of you and a lot of people say, oh, InfoWars, not legitimate. Well, you'll legitimize Forbes, but just to add more legitimacy again to this report, you can follow this link to fedbizops.gov, which stands for FBO. This confirms this report being reported. And you can see here commercial leaded training ammo, pistol, 40 caliber, 165 grain, jacketed hollow point. The bullets are to be delivered to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Artesia, New Mexico, the same destination for 240,000 hollow point rounds, which were purchased only last month. So this is just blatantly obvious armament of the state, and disarmament of you and me. Because you see, there's a reason that the country was founded on guns. I mean, this is a country, number one, a nation founded under God. Now, whether or not people want to agree with that, or whether or not you believe in God or not, maybe you're an atheist, maybe you're an agnostic, maybe you're something else, you can't argue the fact the nation was founded under God. I mean, just take a look around you. Founded under God, whether or not you agree or not. And it was also founded by guns. By guns. Whether or not you agree with that or not, that is how the country was founded. Without those guns, without those weapons, and our ability to physically defend ourselves from tyranny like taxation without representation, and overt force by the redcoats, overt force by our government today, there would be no United States. There would be no America. There would have been no economic boom. There would have been no economic expansion that made millions, tens of millions of baby boomers, multi-millionaires, if not billionaires. There would have been none of that. There would have never been a land where you could come to a country with the freedom to worship any god or no god or anything that you wanted. There would not be a nation that would allow the freedom of speech, people like me, to come on camera, to come on the air, vocalize an opinion, whether or not you agree with it or not. That wouldn't exist. You would live in a totalitarian police state where they'd honestly chop your head off. And we see this in other parts of the world today. If you did something that the state didn't agree with, if you jeopardized their power and their ability to enslave you. Because at the end of the day, we have to go back to human nature. In human nature, there's two opposing, at least in my view, two opposing forces, good and evil. And we are very much involved in a spiritual war. Good versus and light and a word because illuminate, you think Illuminati, but in the true sense, illuminate and to be truly illuminated is not evil. is not evil. So you have the illuminated, you have the light, you have righteousness, you have goodness, and you have that verse, the darkness. You have that verse, evil. And that is what we are involved in today. And human nature, in and of itself, and I like to think the best of people, but there is evil. There is evil all around us. And these people, these criminals, many of who guide us today, many who are, responsible for bank bailouts and global tyranny and the confiscation of assets in places like Cyprus and the organization around gun control to disarm you, your brother, sister, wife, friend, family member, etc. These are very evil people involved and totally encumbered in the darkness. And it's about control. It's about slavery. It is about owning you like a cell, almost like a battery, like a share of stock. And I get into this and do a lot of esoteric detail with our mini documentary Surveillance State, which, to be honest with you, and I have a very smart audience, you guys really are smart. I mean, you're some of the quickest informed people that I know. But to be honest, Surveillance State, for the great majority, is going to be way over the mainstream public's head. I mean, literally, I've had some people, and I've got some mainstream feedback, and they're just like, I don't get it. And it's like, well, what don't you get? What don't you get about this technology? What do you not get about Google Glass? What do you not get about bank bailouts? What do you not get about the DHS buying 360,000 more rounds in addition to the 2 billion already purchased to be used here in American streets? But that's the point. Hollow point. No pun intended. That's the point. The great majority, they're not going to get it. They're not going to get it till literally the Gestapo's knocking on their door, like there was a report out yesterday. G for T, I got to give them a little street cred pending verification of the story. I tweeted this out yesterday. I'm going to get all this out in just a few minutes, in addition to take your calls. And, of course, I've got David Laurie Vanderbeek, governor in 2014 in Nevada, coming up in the second hour. Stay tuned, everybody. Christopher Green, hard hitting and in your face. So what would you say, son, if I gave you a gun? You get to see the world and even go kill a bunch of people that don't deserve to die. Doesn't that sound cool? Yeah, let's get involved in these gross atrocities and war overseas. Let's go murder a bunch of innocent civilians for Obama. It's like your mom probably told you when you grew up or when you were growing up, like, hey, if Johnny went and jumped off a bridge and told you to do so, would you follow him off? Would you just be like, yeah, cool, man, let's go do that. That sounds like a good idea. I see we've got a username here in our chat room called REC212 says, hey, Christopher. Hey, what's up? What's going on? Great to have you join us. We just sent out a couple of tweets. I'm working on that post-produced video we'll have out in a couple of moments for multitasking as much as we can. So, I mean, this is just pretty unbelievable. Unbelievable that there's been such a heavy purchase of ammunition. And I've been digging into this story, the Department of Homeland Security to buy an additional 360,000 more rounds. In addition to that, there's been some breaking videos that have come out over the past few weeks. Footage of hundreds of armored trucks retrofitted for domestic use here in our city streets, our towns, where our family and friends live, similar to ones reportedly purchased recently by the Department of Homeland Security, has appeared and spread online, raising more questions over their intended use. The video was uploaded to YouTube last week by a user who stated that it was shot in the middle of the desert between Hackberry and Peach Springs, Arizona, somewhat in our neck of the woods, or at least in our state. Shows hundreds of military-style trucks loaded onto a train, presumably in the process of being delivered domestically for law enforcement or military purposes. The video raises significant questions in the wake of reports that the Department of Homeland Security, headed by Janet Napolitano, recently purchased around 2,700 MRAP trucks MRAP trucks that many believe are to be deployed by local law enforcement agencies around the country. So we have these military-grade armored vehicles being deployed, in addition to this just violent armament, soon-to-be violent armament. I mean, this is just happening. This is happening in so many ways. I mean, we've been talking about the drone war for years now, the drone war here in the United States, but really this is a game of drones, and this is happening all over the world, just not in the U.S. I always joke that, and I'm serious. I joke. People think I'm joking, but I'm dead serious. I can't wait to get an AMTB drone. I cannot wait to raise the money to get my hands on one of these things, to get our organization to have one of these drones, and we're going to follow these politicians around. I mean, literally, they're doing it to us. You're going to put these drones out above the skies in public airspace, and, you know, we're going to see this, and we're starting to see this with celebrities, et cetera. Well, we're going to take that same mentality, and we're going to use it against you. So, I mean, hey, I can't wait to get these drones out so that it can literally hover around these politicians' every move. I mean, we're going to take pictures. There'll be a live video stream 24/7. We're going to know every intimate detail of these people's lives. When they're cheating on their wives, when they're out doing something they're not supposed to do, we're going to be capturing it all on our websites, Greenwave and AMTVmedia.com. Let me know if you know anybody in the drone business that would like to help us out, because we can work together in combating this big brother, big sister, Mr. Janet Napolitano police state who says she hasn't thrown out the possibility of running for president in 2016. Well, good luck trying to win against Hillary Rodham Clinton. Hillary Rodham Clinton, who's made a big stunt over the past couple of weeks pro-gay. You know, was anti-gay before, but now because it's a popularity contest, has suddenly turned pro-gay. And she's a huge supporter. A little bit of another topic. Let's go to our first call here. Looks like we got a 484 area code. Phone lines are open. I want to hear from all of you. Again, I've got David Laurie Vanderbeek coming on during the second hour. It should be a really interesting interview. Let's go to this first caller. Hi, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Hey, Chris, how are you today, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing really good. How about yourself?
Well, you know, I'm not going to lie. It's getting very worrisome with the economy, and I mean, you can kind of see the path that's laid out in front of us, especially seeing what's happening in Cyprus. Mm-hmm. And it's only going to be, you know, all the world's economies are dominoes, and one of them has to be the first to fall. There's a 90% chance, I would say, that it's going to be Cyprus. And then, you know, you could go to sleep one night, wake up the next morning, and it could be a totally different world. And that's when the drones and the tanks and all these armor-piercing bullets come into play. And, you know, you can... It sounds cliche, but it's like a movie, and you can see it happening in front of us, and anybody who can't see it just is not paying attention.
Yeah, or they don't want to see it. You know, a lot of people, when you put stories in front of them, like the DHS arming themselves with billions of rounds of hollow point ammunition, so, I mean, people just don't really kind of like that sort. They don't want to believe it. They kind of want to just put it aside. And honestly, it gets to the point where what it's going to take is the only way these people wake up is literally when the Gestapo is knocking on their door. And unfortunately, you know, I certainly hope and pray it doesn't get to that. But, you know, that's when people will start to wake up. You know, it's just like the rise of Hitler, the rise of Nazi Germany. There was opportunity for those awake to get out of Dodge, quite frankly. I mean, hey, you know the tyranny's coming. You got a couple options. You can defend yourself on the home front, or you can get the heck out of there. Same thing's happening in the United States today. My issue, and I guess my thoughts have always been, you know what, this is my country. There's not a place like this anywhere else in the world, in my opinion, with this kind of freedom and liberty and constitutional principles. So, you know, you threaten our home front, you threaten our land, you're going to have to deal with not just people like me, but millions of others like me that are, you know, willing to do what it takes. Our free...
I saw that video you were talking about with the trains loaded up with all the domestic tanks, for lack of a better word. And, I mean, that's tangible. I mean, that's not theory. That's not, you know, what if this happens? I mean, there they are in plain view. And that train just goes on and on and on. And, I mean, that for me, that was pretty shocking and pretty jolting to the system. Because that, like I said, that's one of those things that you can't deny it. You can't sit there and make any sort of, well, it could be this or it could be that. There was a train loaded with hundreds of converted domestic tanks in America going to someplace, period.
Sure. And if Americans don't care about that, you know, a lot of Americans care about their pocketbooks. And, you know, you mentioned Cyprus. What happened in Cyprus? What's happening in Cyprus? A 40% confiscation, just outright stealing. I mean, this is just fiefdom run rampant by these politicians in the Eurozone, people like Angela Merkel, Christine Lagarde, et cetera. This is already happening in the United States. So, you know, I'll get the question, hey, Chris, you know, could this happen? No. It is happening in the United States. You know, our taxation here with that representation is quantitative easing, is Operation Twist, is the gross monetization of our debt that is destroying the dollar and ripping off the American people. So we're being taxed. I mean, 40% honestly might sound good in a couple of months when we're carrying a bunch of wheelbarrows around, you know, trying to buy bread. And, you know, I know that sounds a little dramatic, but that's honestly the path we're headed on.
Well, and I think what you said about people just caring about their purse and the economy, it's almost as if people are subconsciously or unwittingly making a deal with the government that they can't win, saying, okay, I'll accept the drones, or okay, I'll accept the 1.4 billion bullets, or okay, I'll accept the tanks. Just bring back my money. Let me feed my family. Let me have my house and my car. And it's the sense of, you know, if I let them do things that I'm not okay with, you know, if that's what's going to bring back the good times and all the flowing money, then so be it. And that's an unacceptable bargain. That's an unacceptable trade-off that you're making there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, to me, it's like a bully. You know, it's like a bully on the schoolyard. And my dad has always given me great advice. He's a really great man and somebody I respect tremendously. But I remember as a kid growing up, you know, having a run-in or two with the bully. And I remember, you know, talking to him like, look, you know, what should I do? You know, I'm a young kid, and I've never been faced with something like this or challenged by somebody trying to hurt me. And he said, look, son, the next time this person walks up to you, he doesn't even have to say anything, but he threatens you in any way, you clench your fist and you pound this guy right between the face, right between the eyes. And I remember this as a little kid. Next day, sure enough, you know, that same guy at the time and a bunch of group, you know how they're always, everybody's stronger in a group, you know, so they're going to go attack a single person in a group. Guy comes right up to me. I'm just a kid. I clench my fist. I swing as hard as I can and drop this guy literally in about 2 seconds. Never heard from him again. And guess what? Nobody ever bothered me again. So, you know, to a certain extent, I equate, you know, that bully on the schoolyard when I was just a little kid to the same thing that's happening now. We've got big government, big sis. We got President Barack Obama. We've got Janet Napolitano. We've got all these politicians telling us what's good for us, pushing us up against a wall, backing us into a corner, honestly providing us with very few options. You know, the question that we need to pose to the American people and the people around the world is, when is enough enough? You know, when are you pushed to that limit where you have no other option but to defend yourself? And I'm sure you have additional questions. I did want to mention that I don't know if anyone else saw this. I wanted to give George for title, G for T. Many of you are familiar with him on YouTube. Some street cred for a video I saw yesterday about a gentleman who's a former war veteran, a disabled veteran, who literally had Gestapo-like people show up at his door the other day and confiscate his weapons when he refused to take a psychiatric evaluation. Not sure if anyone saw this video, but I mean, this is already starting to happen. This is my point. Literally, these types of institutions and bodies are literally they're already grabbing the guns. This isn't, me or people like me, or, people in America talking about what we think is going to happen. It's already going down. And I want to stress that point. You have any follow-up questions or comments?
Well, it's like you're talking about with the bully, and as far as resisting, it's not what you do that matters. It's not if you knock the bully out or if you give him a bloody lift. It's the act of resisting. It's the act of saying, I'm not doing this, I'm not taking this anymore. That is already the victory. It doesn't matter if you go out there and smash the government and bring everything back to the way that it should be. It's simply the fact that you're standing up and saying, I'm not taking this anymore. You've crossed the line, and now you need to deal with the repercussions. That's already a victory. That's already you won them 0.
Yeah, absolutely. And physical force is always a last resort. That's part of the story. Part of it that I didn't really mention, but that's how I was brought up, and my father and people that I cared about or looked up to, or the coaches I participated in sport. I mean, look, it's a last resort. And like you said, I mean, this is an intellectual war as well. This is a psychological victory. When the people awaken to the fact that, look, as long as we're not buying into this system, as long as we're not participating through the act of peaceful resistance, we win. We win.
Well, if sadly you get to the point of violence, then in a sense you've already lost. You're saying that your ideals and your thoughts and your way the world should work isn't valid enough to stand on its own, so you need to somehow force it on everybody else with violence. So, yeah, violence and any sort of aggression is always the last resort. So, you got to keep plugging forward and keep spreading the truth and doing the best you can, knowing what's right.
And hey, the message of liberty is inherent in just being an American in general, or just honestly being a citizen of the world, in my opinion. So, I mean, this is all deeply ingrained in all of us. And, like you said, this is a psychological battle, and we're fighting it. And, there's millions of people just like us. It sounds all corny and hokey, but joining hands, honestly, and joining forces and meeting, all kinds of people on a regular daily basis. And these people are all on the same page. I mean, it's amazing how many people I've just literally met over the past few weeks. And, the business cards and everything I'm handing out, and the liberty, material that we're getting out to the public. So it's pretty exciting.
And that is the last wall to fall.
Finish your thought?
The last true wall to fall is realizing that everybody feels the way you and I do. And that we already all are united.
Hey, everybody, we are back. I am, of course, Christopher Green. This is Green Wave Radio Live. We're having a supercharged show today. Really enjoying the conversation, taking calls from around the world, breaking some pretty amazing stories with the DHS set to buy an additional 360,000 more rounds of hollow point ammunition in addition to the over 2 billion already purchased. We've had tanks, a lot of images and a few YouTube videos that have gone up semi-virally showing hundreds of armored trucks on the move. Again, just to remind you, our direct line, and we have the phone lines open, 218-339-8525, 218-339-8525. Give us a call. I'm going to be going to all that in a moment. Also, as a reminder, I have David Laurie Vanderbeek, the Constitutionalist Party's choice for governor of Nevada 2014. He'll be on the program at the top of the hour. Let's go to a 480 area code, a 480 area code. Hi, you're on the air. What's on your mind, my friend?
Hey, Chris. I just want to say I like your documentary, Surveillance State. I think it's going to win. I was watching some of the other videos, and yours is definitely the best one out there right now, so I hope you win.
Thank you.
I have a few things that I want to bring up, but I don't know if you watched the TV show The Following. It's about that he's basically a serial killer, and he's got a cult. And last night, he's basically trying to get his wife back, and he has these two guys come in, and they got, slick back hair, and they're like, oh, I think they're talking about tactics. We'll go in with, so-and-so guns. And he's like, oh, my God, what are you guys, ex-military? And the guys go, no, worse. We grew up our parents were militia and constitutional extremists. I was just, shocked that this is on, and, I say to my girlfriend, I was like, oh, my God, can you believe this? And, of course, she's, I guess, the average person. She doesn't, really pay attention, and she gets kind of fed up with my but she's like, oh, yeah, that sounds bad. And I was like, why does it sound so bad? Is it the militia part? She's like, no, the extremist part. If you just say extremist at the end of anything, and they're just trying to label, just like with, you report on the DHS and everything, how they're labeling constitutionalists, we're the terrorists now, and it just drives me, I don't know, it drives me crazy.
And you're picking up on all that, and you'll notice how that's propagandized through the mainstream. That's just one example. I see the examples all the time. The Department of Homeland Security literally trains their people to look for constitutionalists, and they are quote-unquote extremists, which I quite frankly find hilarious because, all the people I know within the liberty and freedom movement are some of the most down-to-earth, regular people that I know that just love the country, love their families, and are just blown away by what's happening to America. And, the truth is the real enemy, the real terrorist, is the government. And that doesn't mean everybody within the government itself is a bad apple. But there are a lot of bad apples in Washington today, in Wall Street. And, we're seeing this not just here in America, but we're seeing this in the Eurozone. One of the Eurozone leaders came out today and said that what's happening in Cyprus is setting a precedent for the rest of Europe, and that it will be very likely in the future that depositors in Spain or Italy or any of those other countries will face a similar fate to save the euro. It is all about integration. It is all about control. It is all these people just only care about themselves. They do not have our self-interest at heart, and it's very sad, and it's quite frankly, terrifying to people like me, and I'm sure like yourself. You have any other follow-up questions or comments?
Last week when you were talking about what do you call her, Hillary Rodham, and she came out, saying that she supports gay marriage or whatever you want to call it these days. But then the next day, the chairman for the Republican Party came out reaching out to libertarians and the Liberty Movement saying that they welcome us. And it was just, I was just like, oh, is the, political pandering starting already? I guess the Republican Party sees that they need the independents and the Liberty Movement people if they want to get back in office. I just was wondering if you saw that.
Yeah, I did see that, and that is noticeable. We saw a lot of this transition really happen through the Ron Paul campaign, and kind of the fallout, if you want to define it that way. I define it that way with Ron Paul and kind of positioning his son, Rand, who I think is doing a fantastic job. He's one of the few people I believe representing the freedom and liberty movement. He's a little bit mainstream Republican for me. So, I don't really agree with everything, but I love the fact that he's, he is representing, a portion of America and the Liberty Constitutionalist Party that hasn't been represented in the past. But we're seeing this. We're seeing this go mainstream. And what I've also picked up on, and I think a lot of you have as well, is that there's been a radicalization of the Republican Party over the past few years. And I think this was tantamount during the reelection of President Barack Obama, where a lot of mainstream Republicans realized there's not even two parties now. I mean, honestly, there is one party. It is the Obama-Hillary Clinton party. A very, you can argue, is it socialist? Is it fascist? I think it's a lot more fascist than it is socialist, but that's the only party. I mean, honestly, the Republicans will be hard-pressed to ever win another election. I don't know if they will. So they're certainly trying to change their approach, and they are trying to merge, politically with this other growing political party, which I think can be strong enough in its own right. I mean, quite frankly, I think that this independent, constitutionalist, liberty party could, quite frankly, take fire, as I'm seeing already happen in the real world, and be the party, the future party of America. Hey, why even join forces with the Republicans if we don't have to? But that's politics for you, and I think Americans look at it very much to one-sided. You're Democrat, Republican, liberty. I think we always want to define things, and we can kind of put ourselves in a trap there, trying to operate within that paradigm when it's a lot bigger than that.
Do you think Rand Paul, like maybe he was a little bit more, leaning a little bit more towards the Republican views, maybe that you don't agree with and I don't agree with, just to get in the position that he's in? Or could it be the other way around? Now he's coming towards the liberty side more now, which I don't think it's this one, to try to get us on board. Like, which way do you think it is? Maybe he did that just to get his foot in the door in the Republican Party, the same way, politicians.
We can argue they were just playing smart politics. I felt that there was a little bit of a sacrifice of kind of the integrity of the movement and what Ron Paul stood for. For example, I mean, Ron Paul could very much say, look, guys, we're getting screwed over. We saw this at the RNC, where they basically, the mainstream parties have made sure that no future Ron Paul will ever have a chance within this two-party, now one-party paradigm of ever winning, ever being able to speak, at the convention, et cetera, and have a real influence in mainstream politics. I kind of felt personally that Rand kind of compromised the message a little bit. Maybe that's them playing smart politics, and over the long haul, that'll be, the move to make. But I just feel that, somebody like Ron Paul, with as much energy that he has in what the movement in general stands for, he could just say, look, guys, you know what? We're getting screwed. Follow me. Follow me. We're going to fight this thing with every inch, of my humanity. And let's do this together, and let's rally against this system that doesn't work anymore. And I quite frankly feel we need a more aggressive part of the movement, to lead us in the right direction. Because I think, if we're just playing into the two-party system, we're going to lose. We're playing into the lose-lose situation. It's time for a major change, not a small one. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's like we're still going to be forced into the lesser two evils. And is that part of the Republican Party's, plan? They're using Rand Paul, against us to be like, oh, we'll get them to vote Republican. I don't know. What do you think of Judge Napolitano for president?
Yeah, honestly, that pretty much says, I think it's a joke. I don't even think it's realistic, quite frankly. I mean, honestly, who wins if the country even survives long enough to have another formal election, selection, because it's not an election. The people do not decide. It's going to be Hillary Clinton, guaranteed. And so look, I talk about this all the time. Nothing's changed in thousands of years. This is kings and queens that rule the world. They rule America. We're the peasants. We're the little guys. I mean, look at our options for 2016. It's either Hillary Clinton. So we had, former President Bill Clinton. Now it's Hillary. Or we've got Jeb Bush supposedly running. We've had, Bush Sr., George W., now Jeb. I mean, are you noticing a trend here? So nothing's changed. This is just absolutely ludicrous. Thanks for giving us a call, my friend. I got to go to a quick break. I got David Laurie Vanderbeek coming up next. Excited to have him on the program. Everybody stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.